Gender in tech. So this is a hot topic. This is a touchy topic, but it's an important one. And with me today, please, who do we have?
Hi, my name is Joy Howard, and I'm the Chief Marketing Officer of SONOS.
All right. So let's start with some stats. A 2015 study by Women in Tech found that women hold 57% of all professional jobs, occupations in the world, but only 25% of all computing jobs. And that's even lower for women of color, 3% for black women, 5% for Asian women, and 1% for Latina women. And this is not talking about leadership even. These are just entry-level jobs sometimes. So that brings us to CES. When the keynote speakers were announced for the show, there were no women, just no women at all in there. And you noticed that, and I wonder, how did it feel when you saw that lineup?
Well, one of the things that's so important to stop that cycle of underrepresentation is for women to see role models of themselves, to have a glimpse of a future in which they figure prominently. It's so, so important. And in my own career, I've always been scanning the horizon, looking around horizontally, looking up to find women that I could emulate, women that showed me a path that I could somehow envision myself walking on as well. And so when the lineup was announced, I immediately imagined all the women like me sitting in a dark room, watching the stage, and waiting for that sign of a future in which they could see themselves, and waiting, and waiting, and waiting, and having that not happen. And that feeling is really demoralizing when you're trying to be a part of the future of technology, and you really want to not just shape it, but also help create it and lead it. So that's why we knew that we needed to take action, and that's why we got everyone together yesterday and had the incredible lineup of panelists that we did.
Why is gender equality specifically such an issue? Why is it a problem? I mean, what are the benefits, I guess, of gender parity in any industry?
Well, I think it's important for us to all to remain connected with why we work in tech, why we work in business to begin with. And so if you're like me, and I'm sure many of you are, you pursued a career in technology or in business because you believe that business actually holds the resource. Business is where innovation happens for the most part. And so it's clear that the only way we're going to solve the problems that we have in the world really is to innovate our way out of them. And so technology is a natural place for people to want to be if they believe in the power of business to create a better world. And I know that we all believe that. And yet at the same time, we find, especially right now, that we're not making the progress that we imagined that we would make when we set out on these careers. And I think a big part of why we haven't made that progress is because literally half of the human race is not a part of the leadership of creating that change. And I think about every time the subject of total addressable market comes up, I always think like, how would you like to double your total addressable market? Well, it's a really easy thing to do. Include women in the workplace and serve them as customers. And it's really, really hard to design an event for a constituency that's not represented inside of the company. So we have to make extra effort to break that cycle because it does become self-reinforcing.
I mean, it's still kind of crazy to me that it's 2018 and we're still having this conversation. There were no female keynote speakers on the lineup. Like, I just don't understand personally how that happens when the industry is evolving in so many ways. So I wonder if you do see positive steps being taken in the industry, or if it's kind of been the same.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that we saw after the announcement was just how quickly people offered suggestions of speakers. And one of the things that came up for us in conversations yesterday when we were talking about what are some of the solutions was really the importance of reaching outside of our own networks. So often, we tend to hire people that are like us, We tend to pull from our own networks in terms of recruiting. And it's, the announcement of the keynote speaker should be a wake-up call for all of us to realize that we really have to push beyond our established networks to find the kind of diversity that we want to have that's actually critical to the lifeblood of our organizations. We believe that diversity drives innovation. Over and over, you really see that that's true. And we have to work against our own, natural tendencies to just find people that are like us, to draw on our own networks. So we're thinking about recruiting either for open roles within our companies or for keynote events.
Yeah, getting more women in the jobs, in the leadership positions. That's, one of the biggest ways to really, stop that from happening. If there were more women selecting keynotes, maybe there would be more women keynote speakers, right?
Absolutely. If any of you saw Oprah's speech at the Golden Globes, she told that really moving story about being a child and seeing Sidney Poitier as an actor. And what that meant for her, that's exactly the dynamic that I'm talking about when I say we have got to put women on stage. When you see a woman on stage, you just naturally, immediately imagine someday it could be you. So we have to show that vision of the future.
Absolutely. And do you think, because like you're saying, there's a wider conversation happening throughout entertainment, throughout a ton of industries about gender equality. And do you think that the problem we saw with the keynotes at CES, is that a CES problem or is that a tech industry problem? Or is it a society problem? Is this all wrapped up? What's going on?
Well, it's absolutely a tech problem. It's much bigger than CES. CES is just a symptom of what's going on in technology.
SONOS did the Boom Boom Room, which is a wonderful name. It's a fun name for a pretty serious conversation. But actually, I showed up at this Boom Boom Room event, and I gotta say, it was so warm. It was freezing, it was raining, it was gray outside, but you were in this tent, and these women were talking about their experiences in the industry. There was laughter, there was networking. How did this event go, and what did you want to get out of it? Did you do that?
Well, what we most wanted to do was bring a group of women leaders together to talk about how they were making change, and to talk about really pragmatic solutions that we could all use every day to work together more productively, both as men and as women. And so, one of the so the panel was fantastic. We had 11 panelists representing a broad range from startups to creators. We had several artists on the stage, as well as to big tech companies like Google, and also our friends at Spotify were there. And I think one of the most surprising things about it, and one of the most wonderful things about it, was how fun it was. Often, especially with all the talk of sexual harassment, there's a real environment of fear that's being created. We hear a lot from our male counterparts that they feel like they're walking on eggshells. And so for us to really be together and listen to each other in a way that was fun and encouraging, that was probably one of the most surprising and exciting things about it.
Absolutely. And it wasn't just women. There were men there. That was good to see.
Part of why we named our event the Boom Boom Room yesterday is because we wanted to honor the women who made change within Wall Street in the 90s. Many of you are too young to remember the landmark gender equality case that was called the Boom Boom Room was really sort of a airing of all of the egregious practices that were going on in Wall Street that really in some ways I think carried the seed of some of the destruction that we saw in 2008. And so it's just always important to remember, just like an ecosystem needs diversity to thrive and be healthy, it's the same for your business, it's the same for your industry, it's the same for the ecosystem in which you operate. Diversity is critical to a healthy ecosystem and to a healthy industry and a business.
Are you optimistic about the future?
I'm so optimistic about the future. One of the great things about having a little bit of experience under your belt is you can really feel, is this like something that we saw before that petered out, or is this different? And it is absolutely clear to me that we are experiencing and going through a time of unprecedented change, and that we're going to be so much stronger as a result of working together. So I'm so excited that I could be here with you today, and I really want to thank everyone who's in the audience. Thank you to my sisters. Thank you to my brothers who are here supporting us today, and let's keep on making that change. We'll be stronger as a result.
All right. Thank you very much for being here. All right. Thanks, guys.